Hey, kings and queens. So I'm back. What I wanted to do today was a little bit of a sample of the webinars and closed workshops that we're going to be doing over the internet. So a huge portion of the workshops that I'm going to be doing has to do with this book right here, On My Way to the Throne. It's available on lulu.com. It's only $7. I love the number 7, the God number. I love the number 7. This book also has 7 chapters. It's a very raw copy of the book. This is not the final, but I just really felt the need to get it out there. And so this is what's available right now. It's 7 chapters. It's really pretty much a short book, but it's really intense. And I calls it a book. I usually call it a work, right? Because it became so much more than a book. It is a work about my spiritual journey, my spiritual awakening, but it became a diary. It became the written testament of what was actually going on in my life at the time. And I would even find times where I could not go past a certain chapter. I would get writer's block if that chapter was talking about something that I hadn't conquered for myself, that I knew the formula for it, but hadn't actually applied the wisdom and applied it to my life and made a difference. So this is a very intense work for me. And as I've passed it around to other women, I've allowed people to read it before I even released it. And I've had an abound of conversations, and I found that women were reading it more than once and going through each chapter and really applying it to their own lives and their own circumstances. And that's when I was like, okay, well, that, and I had correspondence with a woman named Andrea Graham. I had the thought, and then she said it as well, developing a workbook. And I was like, okay. So I had already thought of it, and then, that's how I get my confirmations. I get messages to confirm what it is that I already know within myself. And I think over time on this journey, I'm learning how to confirm what I'm hearing without the validation of others. But that's the next book. Let's stay here. I'm sorry. So the workshops. So this is basically how the workshops are going to go. We're going to go chapter by chapter, and we're going to take my spiritual awakening and see how it connects to your own, and see how what I did and the courses of actions that I take or took may coincide with what you may want to do. Make sure you exactly what you don't want to do. You know what I mean? The workshop and the webinar is just feeding off of. It's not me telling anyone what to do, how to do it. There's no way I can do that because I don't walk your path. I'm not on your journey. But I think that I know that I have a clairvoyance and intuitiveness that is strong enough, empathetic enough, based in rawness and truth enough that I'm able to lend some guidance and some support during your journey, right? So choices is where we would usually start. But for the purposes of this being just like a mock, I want to do something that would be a little bit more upbeat without me actually needing people to interact with, right? So I would like to go to the chapter of Ascension. And in the chapter of Ascension, the choices was the first one, and that was me understanding what the truth was, what the reality was about the life that I was living. What was the truth about my relationship, my motherhood, my relationship with myself, my finances, my everything, not what felt good, not what pride allowed me to show to others, not what shame and embarrassment allowed me to hide, but what was actually the raw truth about what was going on. And in that journey, I definitely had to spend a lot of time being quiet and observing. I spent a lot of time crying, actually, to see the realization of a lot of things. And so after I got to that point of seeing everything for what it was as opposed to what I wanted it to be, then I had to make the decision about what I was going to do with what I knew. Okay? There was no way that I can go back at this point and change anything. Everything is already what it is. It's already fucked up. Now what? Well, at that point, I had to make a choice, and we all make a choice to either ascend or fall. Right? So you can either keep doing what you've been doing. You can know that it's not working for you. You can know that it's not serving you, and you can make the decision to say, okay, for whatever reason, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is what I'm used to. I don't believe I can get anything more. This is not my timing. Whatever it is, you have to make that decision. For those that decided or decide to ascend, as I decided to ascend. And when I say ascend, I mean to come up out of it, to rise above it. You know what I mean? To take the strength from it, to build me up strong enough to be able to come up out of it. So, in my ascension, it's funny how when you're rising, it's important to look at what you're rising out of so that you don't in turn repeat it, right? And so I had to look at a huge part of my life at that time was my marriage. For those that don't know, with the same man from the time I was 17. We were married at 18, together until I was 32. Had 6 little girls in between that time. A lot of domestic violence, infidelity, emotional abuse, mental abuse, baby mamas. And when I say those abuses, I am talking between the two of us, where I may not have been physically strong enough to be physically abusive to him. There are ways that I was abusive to him. And it doesn't matter whether or not it was vindictive or whether or not it was purposefully or willfully. It just the way it went. That's how our relationship went on for many of years. So I did not have much relationship with my parents and my siblings. I do, but a lot of what I was going through was so encompassed into that marriage and into my wifehood and my motherhood. I had even lost myself in that, right? So it was important for me to look back in my ascension at where I had been. And when I did that, I needed to know how I had gotten into a situation like this. I needed to look at the beginning. And that's what that chapter is about. So when I look at the beginning of myself and my children's father, my soon-to-be ex-husband, I see where I should have run for the hills. Not because he's a bad person, but because, number one, where I was at that time for myself was someplace of very low self-esteem and insecurity. So regardless to who he was or who anybody is, what I'm going to attract is that thing which I'm living. And so, of course, I'm going to attract someone that magnifies that insecurity, magnifies that lack of self-love. Okay? Because this is what's going on inside of me. So they're going to be the physical form of that. Got you. On top of the fact that both of us come from broken homes that have experienced domestic violence, infidelity, drugs. Okay, so from the top, and we're 17 years old, okay, 18 years old, saying forever vows. All right? I lied. It was just such a host of things. You're going to have to watch the videos or get the book. Get the book, lulu.com, and you can hear about all that. Point's this. When I seen my children's father, I believed it was love at first sight. I said, that's going to be my husband. I claimed him without knowing anything about him, without hardly knowing anything about myself. And that was my 17-year-old self, yes. But a lot of us do that without even knowing anything about a man, because we like his shoes, because we like the way his swag is, because we think we know what type of father he is to his existing children. because we think we know what type of man he is to the woman that he's with now, and she don't know how to appreciate him, and we claim things without even knowing what it is that we're claiming. So I did that. I spoke it into existence. I said, that's my husband. All right. First thing I did. Well, that's the second thing I did. The first thing was a lack of self-love. That's going to set you off in the beginning, regardless of what. Second thing, claimed him. Didn't even know him. So now I done fell in love. At first sight, I don't even know anything about this guy. Okay. Second, excuse me, when I looked into his eyes, and this is something that I learned from Kiki Sinza. Again, this is like the third time I'm referencing Kiki. She has a YouTube channel as well, Kiki Sinza, Cinza. And I have this thing where when I see a man, one of the things that attracts me to him is his eyes. And I love to see a man that has innocent eyes. And I'm like, oh my God, his eyes are so innocent. He's so adorable. Like, I just want to cry. Like, I love him. Right? The nurturer in me comes out because I see like this broken thing in his eyes. And I just want to like attract to it. I stay far away from innocent eyes. I stay far away from innocent eyes. When you're a grown man, I want to see some grown man eyes. I want to see that you have some growth, that you're not stuck at being a little boy, that you've actually grown to be a grown man. You understand? Okay. So that was the other thing, them innocent eyes. Next, when I met him, we were in a paramilitary school. So everybody's in, not fatigues, but in military uniforms. Does nothing for my figure. I was super slimmer than even I am now. Hair back in a ponytail, whatever. Boys have messed up haircuts because, you know what I'm saying? Some of them got all right. His haircut was actually okay. But you know what I mean? Nobody's really swagged out. Nobody's really, So everybody has pictures and stuff of themselves when they were home and the people that they hang out with, because everybody's trying to find their individuality in this place where everybody's the same, essentially, and where things have to be kind of extreme for you to be seen out of the crowd. So he has pictures of a lot of females, and everybody's looking at the pictures that he has, and beautiful women, beautiful young girls that he had pictures of. And someone asked him, he says that she's a dime, speaking about one of these women. But at the time, me and him are together. We're boyfriend, girlfriend in this place, right? She's a dime. Somebody said, well, if she's a dime, then what is she to me? Asking about me, and he goes, oh, she's an 8. I already had low self-esteem. At that point, that should have been my cue that I had attracted someone that was going to reinforce my low self-esteem. When I got upset about it, a couple of friends was concerned and said something to him. And when him and I sat down and talked about it, he explained to me that he was just keeping it real. And I was like, oh my God, he's so real. He's so honest. He's so raw. Like, he's so swags out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I felt. And I wanted to prove to him that I could be better than them. That it was just this uniform. That it was just these circumstances. That I could be this for you. And a lot of that has to do with where I come from. Having a dad that left the home early. And always feeling like, damn, like what? Okay, you and mommy are not together. Yeah, but why you don't want to reach out to me? Why you don't want to be a part of me? Why you say you come in and you don't? Why you don't want? And as an adult, you know better. But as a child, you really don't. And a lot of adults don't see the impact that they have on their children. But so it grew me up to be a woman or young woman at that time who did not have love for herself, so was going to magnify that energy to herself, and then on top of that had the need to feel accepted and validated by a man, right? And so therefore I set my children's father up for failure, because there was no way, be him 17 or 67, that he could ever fill that void, that he could ever be my father. For goodness sakes, that's sick. Even I have sex with this man. He was never supposed to be my dad. And so I immediately set him up for failure, because even if he was functional and healthy mentally and spiritually and romantically, he still would have failed at that task, because that task is unbelievably impossible for him. Okay, he can only be a father to our children, not to me, right? And so I very consciously and very specifically and I'm very purposeful in the men that I deal with. Like, it's not that those innocent eyes don't still attract me. It does. It really does. But it's not worth it. I know what that is. It's attractive to me because it's where I'm comfortable. It's attractive to me because it's some type of comfort zone for me in whatever dysfunctional kind of unconscious way, whatever. I understand what it is, right? So that's the first part to ascension. That's actually the second part of the workshop, but it is the first part to ascension. Ascension being the second part of the workshop. Okay, so what would happen in a workshop is I would tell that story, being my share, my account, right? And in it, there would be something that another woman would have to share, right? And then we would create a conversation, and when someone shares, other people want to share, you want to share. So that's why I was confused about the number of women, because it's a lot of sharing going on. You don't want to overdo the time frame, though. After we do that, then we would do a exercise called Who Do You Love? And in that exercise, I call for women to make a list of the things or the people in your life that you love, right? After that, we're going to pick one person on that list or one thing on that list. And we're going to see how that feeling that you have about that thing or that person is reciprocated, or if it's reciprocated at all. And from that relationship being a very prominent relationship, because it's the relationship that you chose to talk about, we're going to go back to the first week, which we didn't do here. Like I said, choices, that first workshop, which talks a lot about the relationships that you had in your childhood. And what we do in the second week is we connect ascension with what you're ascending from, right? We see how the relationships that we have now play into relationships that we had in our childhood, relationships that we had no control over, right? As children, our relationships with people are kind of dictated to us by other people, whoever that primary person is in your life. You may want a close relationship with someone, but being a child, you can't initiate meetings, you can't initiate play dates, you can't initiate things. So you're at the mercy of other people, right? And it's so crazy that foundation, that time period is what will guide and control what you do when you now have choices. You have a choice, but you'll still do that, what you did when you didn't have a choice, because it's what you're used to. And unless we become conscious of, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is the reality of what it is, this is the reality of it. I'm not in a relationship where we fight sometimes. I've had black eyes. I am in an abusive relationship. I'm not in a relationship with someone who uses drugs recreationally and responsibly. They're stealing money to go out and get drugs at this point, not paying bills. I am the abusive person in my relationship. I mean, I curse, I scream, I yell, I throw things. I'm not a man, so maybe I can't be physically, but I'm that. I do that. We have to get real with ourselves. We have to see what the relationships are, how it corresponds with the relationships that we have now. And then when we see how those two come together, then we start to see what changes we want to make. We start to see what relationships we actually want to have. When I was younger, my mother took me shopping for sneakers, and my mother does not spend a whole lot of money on material things. She's not like that. And so she was picking up things that were priced, that was economically suitable for her, but was fashionably unsuitable for me. And then I was scared to pick up things that was suitably fashionable for me because I know it was not economically priced for her. She was not doing it. So she was getting frustrated with me. Everything she picked up, I say I don't like. And so I finally say to her, she get frustrated with me. Well, what do you want? I said, Mommy, I don't know what I like, but I know what I don't like. Right? And I thought that was funny because a lot of us are like that. You know, you tell somebody, well, what do you want? Well, I don't want to do this. And we say a lot about what we don't want, but we don't put out into the air what it is that we do want. And a lot of times we say that, oh, I don't really know. And we do. We're just afraid to ask for it because we know that, or we think that the answer may be no. Because who knows? If I would have pushed her, like, Mommy, please, I really want these. Like, please. She probably would have got it because my little sisters have done that. And it worked for them. You know what I mean? So it probably would have worked if I would have been hard for it. But the point is, you see, another situation from my childhood, right? Doesn't have to be a relationship with a man. Another situation from my childhood playing into my adulthood, being uncomfortable to ask for what I want, saying very easily what I don't want, but not being able to put the energy into the air about what I do want, into the universe about what I do want. We repeat it when we say repeat cycles, that's what it is. You've learned this from the person that's raised you. This is what's been ingrained in you. It's where your comfort zone is, whether you like it or whether you don't, right? It's what you're familiar with. And in order to change it, you have to recognize it, realize it, say, this is real. Okay, I don't like this about myself, but this is real. This is where I learned it from. How can I learn to do something different? All right? And then we start in the third workshop to actually put those words, those lists of things that we wrote down, those correlations of relationships from our past and our present. The third week is when we start to get down to the action of things, right? Okay, how can I do this? When we start to really master the mindful minute, when we really begin to master the idea of living in the present, honoring the past, respecting the past, regarding the past, but staying in the present and planning carefully for the future, right? So that's what this workshop is. It's pretty much three different levels, you know, in regards to honoring and respecting and realizing what past events you have been through, understanding how that correlates with your present life, how that correlates with the relationships that you have now. During the time when you didn't have a choice, it's looking pretty similar to when you do. And how's that working for you? And if it's not working for you, how to pull the strength out of your past and leave the bullshit behind and make it work for you. To take control of your destiny, to take control of your future, to take control of your present. It's majestic. Your mind is magical. Anything you want, you can have. Right? So, those are that is the structure of our workshops. And like I said, when it becomes interactive and people are sharing just the energy that it's going to produce, the intensity it's going to produce, the vibrations that it's going to produce, I just know that it's going to be such an awesome experience, such an eye-opening experience. Anytime I talk to anyone after they've read the book, and we begin to correspond and compare notes and learn from each other about what's the same and what's different, and it always opens up my mind to something new. It always enlightens me to something that I didn't think of. And that, my dear, if nothing else, is definitely solution-based proactivity. Being a part of this is definitely solution-based proactivity. So practice that, exercise that. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. Solution-based proactivity. Love you guys.